Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first Campus Rec Magazine webinar. My name is Heather Hartman, editor of Campus Rec, and today I'd like to introduce you to our presenter, Adam Zellner, the president of Greener by Design. Adam works directly with a variety of corporate and government entities that focus on energy and sustainability issues. In today's webinar, sponsored by Sports Art, he's focusing on the topic of campus sustainability, giving us an overview of the latest trends and best practices for green building and energy management. The goal is for you to come away with key strategies to use in order to begin a sustainability master plan. Take it away, Adam.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, and welcome, everybody. We're going to just run through some slides, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the whole development of sustainability resiliency and how it relates to what I'll call the macro effects on campus all the way down to the micro implementation of various projects. And as discussed before, my name is Adam Zellner. I'm the president of a company called Greener by Design, and we basically help both public and private companies figure out the space of resiliency, energy, and its changing regulatory view. I think as everybody on this call is probably aware, the world of sustainability and resiliency has changed a lot over time, and frankly, the definition of what it means has continued to evolve, especially as we deal with continuing storms and more severe weather that has caused increased power outages. And as described, what we do is help people figure out this world. And, as you can see from this slide, I always like to tell people, as a former regulator here in the state of New Jersey, the word resiliency, sustainability, they've been evolving over time. But what really has happened is it is the merging of a lot of different things, from master planning to transportation to facility management to energy purchasing to transportation. All of this has evolved into a single definition of sustainability and resiliency. And so it really has gone from a look at maybe a very singular topic to one that has evolved into a look at almost everything someone who is dealing with a campus or facility must look at. And so today, when we look at campuses and what folks have to understand, it begins this incredibly complex picture of moving parts, right? We have a budget and what that budget means, and it's both on the energy side. How much do I spend for energy? How do I procure energy? What am I spending for gas? What times am I spending the most money? Because it obviously goes to operational efficiencies. But it goes further, right? It looks at the aging equipment and infrastructure in the world of accounting and depreciation and all sorts of things. All the pieces and the parts are being accounted in some way. But it also looks to student engagement, right? As a professor at Rutgers University here, I can tell you firsthand that many of the students have become more aware of the campus, its operation, its general goals towards resiliency and sustainability, and frankly have been pushing for solutions with very actionable items that people can see. And this is this whole idea of not how you just master plan, but how you master plan, how you identify incentives, how you take those incentives, take advantage of them in the best way to help lower your costs and to help implement. Again, it's much more comprehensive than it used to be. And as we talk about the greening of fitness facilities and the green campus and the merger, I start with a simple example. For those who've ever stayed at a hotel, you have probably seen the wonderful little sign in the bedroom that says, if you don't wash your towels and if you don't wash your sheets today, you'll be helping the environment. You're helping to save energy, helping to reduce costs. Well, this is beginning at every level, as you see every facet: hotels, education industry, governments, communities, others, trying to figure out how it is that they save money, how it is that they take advantage of existing money, and frankly, how it is that they change their operational styles to match a changing constituent goal, right? People have become more aware of sustainability. They're becoming smarter about it, and they're looking more comprehensively. And when we talk about campuses and we talk about colleges and we talk about students, right, it comes across an incredible number of things, like energy planning, operational efficiencies, environmental compliance, the economic feasibility, the campus culture, which I mentioned before. And I'll talk a little bit about this changing world of information and students' ability to understand how it is that they're paying for a lot of the things that relate to operational efficiencies and environmental compliance, and how it is that students and faculty are engaging campuses. I can tell you here it is an extremely popular topic, and students, faculty, and others have formed groups to make sure that every asset, every facet of the campus is being looked at across the board as we go from sort of the macro look at the world down into more micro. And what does that mean? Well, it means what you see here, right? It means looking at energy conservation. It means looking at waste management. It means looking at water conservation and, of course, transportation planning. All of these things come together to tell the picture. And in all of these areas, there is increasing number of dollars that are available, both grant dollars, incentive dollars, utility dollars, help make these projects work. And as we get towards the end, we'll talk a little bit about why the changing face of this movement has allowed facility managers and operators really to do a lot of these improvements at no cost to you. And so how do we begin? How do we start, right? And it really begins now going from that macro down to the micro, right? And I'm going to use the simple idea of a four legs of a table here. And if you could picture the four legs of this table that is resiliency, it really comes down to the first leg is energy procurement, right? And that is the ability to buy the energy correctly, to use economies of scale in deregulated states to buy it, but also just to look at how your energy bill is being laid out from peak use and other use. And there's a reason that's the first leg, right? Because if we set the price of energy correctly, if we're buying it correctly, if we're using our meters correctly, if we're balancing our load correctly, we have a price that we can ground and then begin the next steps for the other three legs, right? Energy efficiency being that next leg. How can you take advantage of doing energy efficiency, of doing the things on site that upgrade the campus, upgrade the buildings? Now remember, it's important to take the first leg of procurement first, because the second leg of efficiency is based on savings, and those savings are all predicated on the cost that you pay. So if you go out and do efficiency and then you go backwards and reduce your cost, you're going to actually turn your energy solution upside down financially. So first we procure, then we efficient, then we go out and look at on-site energy and how we make it, and then finally how we take that on-site energy and we store it and we get credits for it and we use it in different ways that both maximize the resiliency of the campus, reduce costs, reduce greenhouse gases, but it's done in a way that makes sense because you start with the lowest hanging fruit in procurement, you move forward in efficiency that always has incentives, you move forward in generation. Now that you've made the campus efficient, you don't need to produce as much electricity. And then finally, you get resilient with that electricity as you begin to store it and use it in ways. But it is critical that we take those four steps, because that is how all of us prevent us from getting upside down. Now, as we go forward into more micro, this is one of my favorite slides, and many who've heard me speak before have heard this. My mother, who just turned 79 years of age, is a millennial. And why I say that, because people have this view of millennials as purely college students or young people, but it's not. It's folks who are, frankly, information heavy. They have access to information. They have access using, phones and other things to compare, to shop, to do things that, frankly, we didn't have the choices to do before. And so what it means is we've got to be better. We've got to be smarter. We've got to do the things that we're supposed to do for upgrading our equipment and doing energy efficiency. But most important, it means that people who are making decisions, students who are making decisions about where to go, investors who are talking about where to invest monies in, foundations, others that have green fiduciary responsibilities, that are committed to environment in some way, they're aware of what you're doing or not doing. more and more often today, you can get information about everything that's going on, and you can get that information at your fingertips. And more often than ever before, young people and older people are making decisions about what they're going to do, where they're going to spend their money, based on that information. And that's why it's so incredibly important to have a plan. As you talk about managing the priorities for this plan, setting priorities for this plan, I mean, there's a lot of things that people weight a green plan on. Money is always the number one in my book, but it actually relates to a lot of other things, right? It can be about retaining customers. It can be about understanding your use in your data. I can't tell you how many large campus settings that we've studied. And when folks take a look at how they're using energy, when they're using energy, how they're creating their class schedules, the timing of different events, what that means to peak energy use, they're always stunned that simple changes in schedule or operations can mean as much energy savings and cost savings as major investments in technology or equipment, because they're related, right? When we use electricity, how we use electricity and gas, and the cost of that gas and electricity are all related. And so there's ways to do this as you're starting to look at what the priorities are for you, that may be about money, but it may be about a lot of other things, including some simple operational changes that save a lot of money, right? And now as we start to dive from that macro of the big picture into the micro of what your campus, what your facility can do, you know, these are the beginnings of some of the ideas: recycling, energy efficiency, indoor air quality, lighting, gray water, etc. And you know, even right down to, you know, the basics of the kitchen, the operations, your gym, all the things that allow you to take advantage of technologies today that frankly not only don't cost anymore, but save a lot of money going forward, right? And you know, as we start to talk about, again, this example of macro to micro, I talked before about hotels branding themselves as green because they don't wash sheets and towels. Well, I mean, campuses have an unbelievable opportunity, especially when as it relates to their, you know, their gym equipment. As we know, there is a ton of equipment. There is a desire on many campuses for folks to stay in shape, be in shape, use equipment. There is a tremendous opportunity for sports teams and others that are throughout college campuses. And when you begin to look at this slide and you think about the numbers of pieces of equipment that are at a standard campus, you know, you can begin to get an idea of how much you could potentially save. In addition to that, lighting retrofits, water reductions, all of these things are incredibly opportune because campuses are unique in the fact that they have so many users that when we use smart technology to make things efficient, or we put smart technology in to make energy, we have an opportunity to do it on a scale that is very different than other institutions just because of the size, right? And you know, as I said before, depending on the location you are, that your campus is or your buildings are, there's incredible number of incentives to do this. I chose just an example of one place, and it's just to give you an idea of the types of different incentives, from credits to business rebates to customer efficiency rebates to energy smart programs that will pay you to take equipment and update it from what you were going to buy to equipment that's better than 15% over code. And what's fascinating is not only do you get the rebate, not only does it end up being cheaper, but because you are on the operation side and it goes from what I call a capital expense to an operational benefit, going forward, as you take advantage of these programs, there is just a ton of opportunity to see more savings as it builds out. And again, this goes macro all the way down to micro as we begin to think about, you know, how individuals, how equipment, how some of the stuff that Sports Art and the eco program that they have put together are revolutionizing what's happening in these places, right? And this is before we get to the idea of adding storage to it, right? And the whole concept of having a gym and having multiple pieces of equipment distributed throughout a campus with the ability not only to save money and produce power, but potentially to be able to use that power in some way going forward as storage and energy conservation and micro inverters and all sorts of things become a standard. And sports art has become a leader in the world in perfecting technology that allows us to take advantage of, frankly, again, something that was sitting, using money, using energy while people were working out. And the whole idea is that people would love an option so that they could save that energy, they could produce their own energy, and frankly be part of a solution rather than being part of a problem. And what makes it easy is it's simple, right? Not just sports art and eco power, but technology in general has become much more efficient. Solar, inverters, a variety of equipment, lighting, LEDs, intelligence. I think we are all aware of the changing world of virtual reality. If you don't have an Alexa yet, someone's going to get you one soon. And this whole idea of virtual reality is really just about intelligence being put into systems. And as the electric grid gets more intelligent, that plug you see right there, which is, a plug that goes into a system that is not that smart, tomorrow that system is going to get smarter, and that plug is going to work with that smarter system to figure out how and when to use that energy in a way that maximizes not only the economic benefits, but the social benefits and everything else that goes with it. And this is just some of the examples of the equipment. Again, the whole idea is that it's not only a game changer in terms of what people can do, but people get vested into this idea that they're helping to support a concept. I will also tell you, in the green world, I can't think of another demographic, socioeconomic, or other issue that motivates people to spend money than the green and resiliency world. And what I mean by that is people are willing to go out of their way to understand when people are not reflective of their beliefs, and they will go out of their way not to shop, not to buy, not to participate in things that they don't think meet their goals and objectives. And as I said before, the intelligence around that gets better every day. That's why we think it's a great opportunity to enhance the experience. Students can get an understanding, they get information, they can dump this data onto all sorts of watches and technology, they can compare it, they can compete. And I think we all know that students like to compete because they're competitive in general, right? And so it's a great idea of a micro example of some things that can be done today to increase the recognition, the self-worth, but increase student satisfaction because they are getting something out of it. And it comes back to, frankly, why not, right? Why not be in a place where we can provide folks equipment that makes sense for their lifestyle, makes sense for an economic perspective, makes sense from a rebate perspective, makes sense from a global warming or climate change or just do the right thing perspective, because I'm not here to argue all those political things, but what I am here to say is if there's a way for us to save money, if there's a way for us to take advantage of incentives, if there's a way to brand the campus as greener to get more people to participate, then those are all fantastic wins. And it is not like the incentives are only in one state or in one place. The following map is just a small sample of green markets. These are different types of incentives, from rebates to folks who will actually pay you to upgrade equipment, to utilities that will pay you to help do energy efficiency, to private companies, ESCOs and others that will come in and turnkey at no cost to you all of the upgrades, with the idea that they will be able to capture the savings. And so you're literally going to be paying them back on the incremental energy savings costs that are achieved from the upgrades of the equipment, or those revenues that are achieved from producing energy. And I'm just going to close on this, which is just a fascinating thought about saving versus making energy, as we talked about sports art a little bit, right? The world of savings was available to all of us and has been for the last 30 years, right? If we pay money, we can upgrade equipment and we can save electrons, which ultimately save money. But now, as the world of smart grid and microgrids and in micro inverters and new technology is coming along that allows us to really take that electron that we saved and now actually go out there and return it to the grid, sell it, it is become a whole new dynamic, right? It now says to somebody that if I can save electrons by putting in the right equipment, by putting in the right lighting, by generating some power on site, I can actually go out in 20 states today, and then the rest in the not so distant future. I can go out and resell those electrons to increase my bottom line while I'm helping the environment and helping my campus and helping my business case. That to me is a quadruple win-win-win-win, as they say. And this will continue to evolve as these states that you see here, which are all 50, will continue to get more aggressive with programs as it meets their goals for energy savings, cost savings, or other goals that they have. And so with that, I want to say thank you, and I am going to be here for some questions.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, we actually have a few questions. The first one for you is, what is the #1 recommendation for a rec center to start going green and lower costs?
Sure, it's a great question. The #1 recommendation for anyone is start by going to the Public Utility Commission in your state. They're called boards of public utilities, they're called other things, but your state has a Public Utility Commission. In that PUC, there is a list of grants and incentives that are available in the state for every owner. And so I would begin there so that you can compare what incentives are out there versus what equipment you're looking to buy or what improvements you're looking to make, so you can take advantage of free money that's out there. Sometimes there are, low-hanging fruit like changing lights and other things that you would do naturally. There's some things that may be a little bit more money that you wouldn't normally do, but if you can find a rebate for it, it may be the game changer for you, and you may find the state actually is willing to pick up a large portion of that cost. So to me, the first stop is find out what incentive money is available to you.
Yeah, I heard free money in there. I latched onto that one, so I'm sure everyone else did. Yeah, and another question for you, Adam, from our audience is, does the energy generated by Verde or the sports art equipment actually make a difference?
It does, right? And so I want you to, it's very much like a sporting event, right? It's not just the energy you're making. That's why I said it before, it's the energy you're saving. So at some point we start on the first side, normally business as usual. And you guys all know this, right? The equipment has become heavier users of energy because today they have screens and entertainment, and it's become very much, a high energy use system for folks who are working out. So first, when you think about the numbers of pieces of equipment you have today that are plugged in and using energy, you start by saving that, and then going forward, absolutely, as now you're saving that energy, as you're producing that energy, and especially at the right times in peak states, it can have a significant impact. And just like anything else, it's economies of scale. The larger numbers of pieces of equipment you have and the more expensive your energy is, the more of an impact it's going to be. But I'll start out by saying the simple things. Today, you plug it in and you pay for it. So you want to stop that. Tomorrow, you won't have to pay for it. And if you can generate extra energy, that's great. And as technology changes, especially as we're watching Tesla and storage and other things, this is an amazing ability to be able to think forward at not just how you save that money today, but to the person who asked the question's point, tomorrow, it may be a way that you can make some significant money off of it.
Yeah, and one other question for you too, Adam, is you mentioned a slide, or in one of the slides, an app, and they were curious what specifically that app was that you went over.
Sure, and we'll get this out to everybody, but Sports Art is working on, has actually an application, and the equipment has sensors that allow the app to be picked up directly just by sitting on there, so your phone or your smartwatch or anything else can connect and talk to it. And these apps allow you to track use, just like any of the other smartwatch applications today that track use, but the use now can be tracked in energy, carbon, and a whole bunch of things. And I'll dare to say that going forward, that app is going to evolve, and it's going to allow people to not only gain more and more insight and information about how their workout is, what they're doing physically for themselves, but their impact relative to energy use, peak energy use, environment, and everything else.
All right, awesome. Well, I believe those are all of the questions we have. Adam, is there anything else that you wanted to share and let our audience know?
No, the only thing I'll add and close on, in addition to saying thanks to you and the sports art folks and everybody else, is that, in today's world of competition, and colleges and campuses are all in competition with one another, as we all are, for those people who are not taking advantage of these programs, what you're doing is you're competitively letting yourself fall backwards, because your neighbors, friends, and other colleges are going to take advantage of these programs. And at the end of the day, when I see the triple bottom line, which is how much money goes out, right? How much are we spending? How much money can we potentially save? And then how much are my stakeholders, my students, my folks who are using this campus interested in this renewable, sustainable resiliency movement? I look at those three and it becomes a very obvious answer of, if I don't do it, my neighbors are going to do it. If I don't do it, my neighbors will get more competitive. If I don't do it, my students will be less attracted to my campus. And so this is a perfect opportunity to take advantage, because the money's here, the timing is right, and frankly, again, if you don't, others may. And so with that, I just want to say thank you again and very much appreciate the time.
Yeah, and Adam, as you were speaking, actually, I had one more question pop in, and it is, if lights or low-hanging fruit are changed out first, will there still be enough potential left on campus for an ESCO to look at performance-based funding contract opportunities?
That's an excellent question, and someone who clearly knows the energy world. The answer is maybe. Lights are the, and let me just sort of frame the question, right? Typically, if I wanted to have a third-party finance my campus upgrades, it would include lights, chillers, HVACs. It would include a bunch of different equipment. Each of those pieces of equipment has a different return on investment. The larger the pieces of equipment, generally, the worse the return on investment. The highest ROI is the lights. And so if you can take the lights and blend it with the rest of the equipment, in other words, if you don't cherry pick the lights, it is definitely easier for third parties to come in and pick up the less ROI pieces of equipment, because they can get a blended rate. That being said, lights are one of those things that every 2 or 3 years seems to have technology changes that allow enough room in savings to justify the expense. And so even if you have done the lights and it was done a couple of years ago, it is probably worthwhile to look again. But the short answer is, if you can do it all at once, it is much better, and you get more options to implement with third parties than if you cherry pick small pieces.
All right, well, awesome. Well, Adam, big thanks to you for presenting, as well as to our sponsor today, which is Sports Art. It was great having everybody on our very first webinar. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. Happy start of summer.